There is a Jewish tradition of people tearing their clothes when someone has died, literally ripping their clothes in their anger and sadness. And in the Talmud, which is the book of Jewish laws, a question is asked of some teachers about whether it is okay to sew the clothes back up again after a period of time. The Jewish teachers said yes, but they also said that when repairing the clothes, people should not tuck the edges under, trying to hide the tear. They said you should let the tear be seen. This is to show that life after grief is not the same as it was before. You're listening to Parting. My name is Chloe and I am your host for this episode. We want to recognise the wisdom that can be found in the traditions of different cultures around our world, and in particular acknowledge that the stories we are telling in this podcast have been created on the homelands of the Dharawal, Alauri and Wadi Wadi peoples. We thank our elders in our community for their wisdom and traditions that guide us. The theme for today's episode is In My Arms, and in it we'll be thinking about when people who are younger die. Today we have 3 stories for you. Story 1, The Witch, where Victoria and her friends uncover the real story behind their neighbourhood witch. Story 2, Remembering Owen Day, where we honour a boy's wish. Story 3, Grace, where we talk to the mum and sister of a girl named Gracie, who is Grace by name and Grace by nature. Who are we? We are a group of young people who happen to grow up in places that are considered disadvantaged. This first story is set in the public housing estate where many of us live. Talking about when people who are younger die is hard. So that's why we thought it'd be best to start with this light-hearted story about a girl who comes to understand how someone else might be affected by grief. Story 1, The Witch.
Victoria wasn't afraid of anything. Brave, you might call her. Annoying, rude, naughty, and
a little B word is what her older sister Naomi called her.
They'd still play together.
Though Naomi didn't really have a choice. She was 5 years older than Victoria.
In her first year of high school.
And since their mum had started working full-time,
that made Naomi Victoria's part-time babysitter.
Their mum worked in the city, so she was gone before breakfast. And she was home after tea time. Naomi had to get Victoria up. She had to feed her and get her to school in the morning. She had to make her lunch and make sure she did her homework. She had to fix her dinner and get her to pick up after herself.
And most of all, try and keep her out of trouble.
Victoria excelled at getting into trouble. One time, when Victoria and her friends had gotten a particularly large batch of mulberries from over the fence at Auntie Mel's house, Victoria had convinced the other girls that all the white cars in the street needed some lovely pinky purple handprints on them to make them look more exciting, she said.
Or to make them look pretty.
It wasn't very exciting cleaning all the cars in the street, though.
Victoria would make up unflattering names for the adults in the street. Big Nose Barry and Sarah Slothface.
She would call them that to their faces.
She'd get away with it sometimes too.
Because as well as being annoying, rude, naughty and a little B word, Victoria was charming, cute and endearingly funny.
And she knew it.
Naomi and Victoria lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-storey townhouse in the middle of a public housing estate lined with identical 2-storey, 2-bedroom townhouses. The wood panels, fences and letterboxes were painted muddy green.
Some of them were dusty pink. They used to be pastel blue, green and red.
Which gave the estate its name Legoland.
Well, that and the fact that the houses look like little blocks. Yeah, and they're all crammed in next to each other.
Victoria thought it was funny to walk into somebody else's house.
Pretend she thought it was hers. And start yelling at the stairs for being on the wrong side.
For being on the wrong side. At one end of their street was a loop road that encircled a patch of grass where the neighbourhood kids would play.
Most of the boys just took it over with football games. But sometimes there was tip,
What about stuck in the mud?
44 homes, cartwheel competitions.
The streets surrounding the grass patch and the houses were bike and scooter tracks, with speed humps everywhere to stop cars from speeding through or trying to lose the cops in the boroughs of the estate.
Everybody knew everybody here.
Naomi and Victoria always had a place to go if they were ever bored. Or if they were thirsty.
In need of milk,
A band-aid.
an ice block,
Or somewhere to hide. The street had everything.
even a witch.
The witch's house was 4 doors down from Naomi and Victoria's house.
Victoria rarely went down that way.
Only if the boys were taking up the circle for a game of football.
Would she go past the witch's house to get to the field behind it?
The boys were playing football today.
It was the last day of school holidays and everyone was feeling the pressure to make the most of it.
The boys had hogged the circle almost the entire time. We have to train, they said. It's footy season.
It wasn't fair. Most of the boys played AFL.
And they played NRL as well, so it was always footy season. Even if they did let Victoria join the game.
It was never really much fun because they were always so competitive.
And they would get frustrated when she would make up her own rules.
You can't run outside of the line, Victoria.
You're not allowed to tickle other players after you tackle them.
You can't just say the can is now a ball and score a try. It doesn't count. Who needs the boys anyway?
Naomi had agreed to meet Victoria and her friends in the field behind the houses so they could play their own sports ball game.
They could make their own rules.
Victoria had the ball.
Wasn't her ball, but she had it.
And she led her mob of friends for today to the field behind the houses, crossing to the other side of the street when they came to the witch's house to be sure that they were far enough away that no curses could reach them.
Naomi was there to keep her eye on them. 2 eyes on Victoria.
But Naomi joined in their games as well.
Making sure they were safe. And no one got too close to the creek.
It was so much fun to play with lots of people in the field on the last day of school holidays.
Lolly, Jalara and Tali were singing Arabella, while Latea, Naomi, Shaniqua, Tanika and Victoria were playing a game of dodgeball.
With rules made up by Victoria. 2 of the girls were cornered by the fence. Victoria picked her target.
She swung her arms back behind her head and held the ball at Latea.
The moment it left her hands, she knew it was lost forever.
She could see where it was going, and all she could do was watch it fly over the fence and into the yard beyond, her hands covering her
To
mouth.
muffle the swears that were in her head.
You threw it over the witch's house! Everybody stopped what they were doing.
And they crowded around the fence.
Everyone stopped what they were doing and crowded around the part of the wooden fence where a panel was missing to peek into the yard.
Cautiously curious.
Naomi rolled her eyes at Victoria.
Come on, I'll give you a boost over the fence.
No way, I'm not going in there.
Why not?
Said Naomi.
Because the witch will get me.
Because the witch will get me.
The others nodded in agreement.
Don't be
stupid, she's not a witch, said Naomi. How could someone so grown up be so blind? Yes, she is, said
And
Victoria.
one time she cast a spell that made Ruben had a bloody nose.
One time she gave Reuben a bloody nose, said Shaniqua.
Ruben is always getting a bloody nose. That
That
has
has
nothing to do
with her, said Naomi.
Does so. She waved her hand out the window and blood came everywhere out of his nose.
Naomi sighed.
As she began to hoist herself up over the fence while
Other
the other
girls
girls
gasped
gaped in
in
disbelief and admiration,
Admiration.
What are you doing?
said Latea.
Getting the ball?
Said Naomi. Oh no, said Victoria. She's going to make the wits come out. The girls squealed as they ran across the field to hide in the ditch behind the long grass. Victoria was never one to let an opportunity to wind the others up go by. They lay there hidden, giggling and stirring as Naomi's shadow moved along the fence line inside the fence and then disappeared.
And then it just disappeared.
The witch has got her!
They laughed. Naomi was probably fine.
The witch wouldn't really take kids.
Would she?
She's fine. Probably. Another shadow appeared, different from the first. It moved slower, across the fence line and back again. The girls fell silent. Victoria sat up staring, open-mouthed at the fence. She called out,
Naomi!
nothing.
Nothing.
Silence.
Silence. A million thoughts went through her head. None of them good.
What was probably 10 seconds felt like hours
And
before suddenly it
suddenly-
appeared like a cannonball being catapulted over the castle walls. The ball!
The ball landed with a thud on the grass of the field. Naomi slung her long legs over the top of the fence.
The girls raced towards her.
Where did you go?
Said Victoria.
I went inside to see if it was okay if I could get the ball.
And you went inside?
Inside?
Yeah, you guys are ridiculous.
The girls all laughed. Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. Kind of.
Kind of.
Probably.
Probably. After that day, Naomi had told Victoria and her friends to leave the witch alone.
She didn't say the witch.
But that's what she meant. Naomi was convinced, or possibly brainwashed, into thinking that the witch was just an old lady who liked to keep to herself.
But Victoria knew better.
And besides, it's kind of exciting having a witch living in your street.
It was kind of exciting having a witch live on your street.
And that's how Victoria and her friends came to be standing in Victoria's front yard, daring each other.
I dare you.
said Victoria.
I dare you first.
Said Taya.
I dare you second. You promised.
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
Did too.
Yes, you
not.
did.
Did too.
Did not.
Did not.
Did two. Did not. Did two. Did not.
Cross your heart and hope to die, stick a needle in your eye, said Alara. Ugh, damn it.
That did it.
Alara got the last say with the stupid needle line.
In truth, Victoria did remember this promise.
But she was hoping Taya and Alara had forgotten.
In any case, she wasn't about to let her friends think she was a scaredy cat.
She sighed,
Gave the other girls a "you guys are such a pain" look,
as if she really didn't care.
and started walking towards the witch's house.
Have fun knocking on the witch's door.
If she turns me into an egg, it'll be your fault.
Victoria shot back.
An egg, said Alara. The girls' giggle started to fade into the background. The sounds of the neighbourhood took over.
A dog barked.
Somewhere someone's toddler was crying. A faraway motorbike.
But they all sounded a bit muffled by something.
What was it?
Victoria realised that it was her heart.
Victoria realised that it was her heart sounding like it was beating in her ears. She got to the witch's gate.
The grass was overgrown, spattered with weeds and junk mail.
The curtains were tattered and drawn.
The door was all wonky and broken, and the screen door was missing its handle.
The whole place had a cold feeling about it.
A cold that Victoria could now feel from the tips of her toes to the top of her head.
She now wished she hadn't yelled out to the girls on her way. She had probably ruined her chance to sneak through unnoticed.
Too late now.
Too late now.
She took one last look over her shoulder back to Alara and Latea.
They were half hidden behind Victoria's fence and making wild hand gestures for her to move forward.
She took a deep breath in,
She inhaled
as if she was about to dive into ice cold water.
And ran. She sprinted up the pathway covered with grass and weeds
To the witch's front door, knocked 3 times quickly.
on a screen that shook and threatened to fall on top of her. And, almost slipping on a 10% pizza discount voucher,
Sprinted back as quickly as her fear-stricken muscles would allow.
Alara and Latea watched on in admiration as Victoria hurried back down the street. Run, 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 said Latea.
And she ran into the safety of the front yard.
Who's a chicken now, said Victoria.
What are you
What are you doing?
The sound of Naomi's voice came from the upstairs window, making the girls
and
jump.
made the girls jump.
Nothing?
Said Victoria, with all the feigned innocence and wry smile of someone who had clearly done something.
What do you mean, nothing? I saw you.
Said Naomi.
I told you to leave her alone.
Naomi was now fully leaning out of the top bedroom window,
Switching her gaze between the witch's house and the girls below.
We was just joking.
said Victoria.
Well, she better find it funny or she'll call cops on you.
Or she'll call the cops on you.
She'll put us in the oven.
Said Victoria. The girls laughed.
Naomi disappeared back inside and closed the window.
Witches didn't seem like the type of people who would get jokes, or find things funny, or call the cops.
Hello, please. It's the witch. Kids play knock and run. Arrest them all, or I'll turn them into frogs.
The driver got out of the car with her 2 young children, but to be fair, I wouldn't overlook this and followed me into the supermarket. I reminded myself not to get in front of them in such a rush. Where are we going? It doesn't make sense to me.
Just to be safe, though, Victoria and her friends decided to steer clear of the witch's house. For a while.
For a while.
Curiosity is a wonderful thing.
It's what drives scientists,
Inventors.
inventors,
Poet.
poets,
Artists.
artists.
And more.
To discover and create amazing things.
It can also cause all sorts of trouble.
It can also cause all sorts of trouble and kill cats.
Victoria and her friends were a curious bunch.
Victoria and her friends were a curious bunch, for better or worse,
What does she look like?
said Jalara.
She looks like a witch, said Victoria.
I'd never seen her come out of her house before, said Taya.
Nobody had.
Except Naomi.
But she was under the witch's spell. Victoria's read enough books to know what witches look like.
She would have green skin.
And what? All over her face.
Her hair would be all matted and black.
All her clothes ripped and stained.
And stained with muck.
Stained from all the potions and poisons. She'll have a long, crooked nose.
She would have long, crooked nose, piercing eyes,
And skeleton hands. And long, gross, stinky yellow nails.
But still, it'd be fun to see one in real life.
But it'll be fun to see one in real life.
Let's go see if we can get her to come out, said Victoria.
The girls ran through an alleyway.
Taking a diversion from their normal route home from school, backpacks bouncing as they thudded clumsily down the concrete path that came out to the field behind the housing estate.
And they ran up to the witch's fence.
They lined up across the wooden fence.
Breathless, they lined up along the wooden fence that separated them from her.
They looked through the cracks at the run-down house and the overgrown lawn, and messy garden and very young grass. How are we going to get her to come out, said Jalara.
Oh, witchy, where are you?
Yelled Victoria.
Why don't we lure her out with something?
With what? I don't know, some food or something?
Maybe we could lure her out with some food or something, said Jalara.
Victoria got some moldy cheese sandwich in her bag.
Why don't we throw it over?
That smell will make her come out. Ew!
Alara crept behind the other girls and picked up Victoria's bag
Which was dumped in the grass.
and lobbed it high over the fence like a champion bag lobber.
Like a champion bag lobber.
It was quite impressive, really.
Seeing as Alara was a tiny thing with arms the size of empty kitchen paper rolls.
Victoria was both amused and horrified.
What did you do that for? Victoria said. They all pressed their faces into the splintered wood of the fence and immediately launched back at the sound of the crackled and husky voice that shouted,
Said the witch.
The girls squealed.
They squealed through the field.
They squealed past the creek.
They squealed up the street.
They squealed along the houses.
They squealed through the front gate. They squealed up the driveway to Victoria's house, to the one sort of grown-up they knew who might listen.
It was a long way from the back of the witch's house.
To get around to the front of their houses,
And even longer if you screamed all the way.
Naomi!
Victoria shouted.
What?
Naomi appeared at the front door.
Perplexed, but not entirely surprised to see the four girls, horror-struck and panting.
She could hear them coming.
She could hear them coming. The whole estate could.
Naomi was quite calm.
She had a tea towel in one hand and a semi-dry mug in the other.
And at her feet, just outside the landing of the door, was Victoria's school bag. It was Victoria's school bag? The girls froze. What?
Said Naomi.
Did you get my bag? Said Victoria.
What are you talking about?
Said Naomi.
Magic.
Victoria looked at Naomi, and then with a sudden realisation, she looked over at the witch's front yard.
She half expected to see the door closing.
Or a black-cloaked figure laughing at her from in the front yard.
But it was as still and dead as ever.
Victoria thought about it.
The last time she saw it was in the witch's backyard. And now it's back home.
Bippity boppity boo!
Naomi was already shaking her head and walking back inside the house, leaving the girls standing gaping, opened mouth in the direction of the witch's house.
Victoria got changed. She felt weird, like opened.
But she wasn't sure exactly what it was or why it had happened.
She felt all full of butterflies.
All jittery.
Or wobbly. She was trying to think through it logically.
It was quite a run from the back of the witch's house all the way over the back field.
Back through the lane.
And then down the street to where the witch's front door was.
And past.
And past onto her house. Would the witch have had time to get her bag?
Come out of her house.
Walk down to her house and put it on the front step?
And put it on the front step?
Maybe.
She would have had to be fast.
Especially to get back to her house so quick.
It was hard to believe it wasn't some kind of magic.
Maybe she used a broom.
Victoria!
Naomi's voice rattled through the house.
What? Victoria shouted back.
Homework!
Don't have any.
Don't lie to me. Get down here and get your homework out.
Victoria stomped down the stairs.
No more thoughts about the witch.
Homework put an end to all magic.
She picked up the bag that she had left near the front door.
And went into the lounge room.
Naomi was sitting on the lounge.
She was doing her own homework, I guess.
Victoria took her bag over to the lounge and unzipped it.
What's that?
Something fluffy?
She reached into her bag and pulled out a teddy bear.
Victoria had never had a teddy bear as beautiful as this one.
All hers were kind of hand-me-down.
From Naomi, or her millions of cousins.
They always had one ear chewed.
Or a bit of stuffing poking out from one of their feet.
But not this one.
It was perfect.
old, she thought, not brand new.
but in perfect condition. What the hell is that? Said Naomi, looking up.
I don't know.
Victoria said.
Did you nick that? You better not have. Whose is it?
I don't know, Victoria said.
But her mind was racing through the possibilities.
Victoria, Mum is going to kill you.
The witch must have put it in my bag.
She's not a witch.
She's not a witch, Naomi said, almost out of habit.
And then she too looked at the teddy bear.
Her angry look changed.
Victoria half noticed her, but she was still looking all over the amazing and beautiful bear.
She turned the bear in her hands and noticed something on its silky foot.
Look, Victoria said.
It's got my name on it.
The foot had Victoria embroidered in dark brown letters.
Victoria looked at Naomi, feeling a bit alarmed now. Was this some sort of voodoo thing? No, there's no such thing as witches.
There's no such thing as witches. She's just an old lady. But why does the teddy bear have my name on it?
And how did it get in my bag?
Naomi looked kind of troubled.
Maybe she wanted you to have it.
Naomi said.
Why would the witch even have a teddy bear?
Victoria asked, hoping Naomi's troubled look wouldn't be some kind of bad news for her.
Mum said she had a daughter.
Said Naomi, looking down. Victoria waited.
That was not an explanation.
She was just about to talk again when Naomi added,
Maybe it was her daughter's.
Naomi kind of nodded to herself at this.
Victoria sensed something.
Victoria sensed something she couldn't put her finger on.
Something in the way Naomi was talking.
Something sad.
Why doesn't her daughter have the teddy bear?
Victoria asked.
Victoria sat down on the lounge next to Naomi. Something told her this was a story.
Something she didn't know anything about.
Mum said she died,
Said Naomi.
Her daughter died.
like ages and ages ago. And that's when she stopped going out and seeing people.
Not coming out of the house.
Victoria looked back at the teddy bear.
She felt all tingly on her neck.
And down her back.
She never knew about anyone who died, except on TV shows.
Except for Carly's nan who died.
Carly was really upset when it happened.
She didn't have much energy for playing and kept going home when they started to have fun.
And kept going home.
Victoria had wondered how she would feel if her mum or Naomi died.
But she didn't want to think about that at all.
And so she just pushed it out of her head fast.
That was her own kind of magic, she thought.
Don't think about the bad things and they won't happen.
I wonder if that's what the witch thought before her daughter died,
That it would never happen.
and that she shouldn't think about it.
But it did, and it just made her run back home and not come out for all these years.
And we thought we could get her out with some food.
No way, thought Victoria.
What would make her come out?
What would make her come out?
Little did she know it, but she was about to find out.
And not in the way she expected.
She just couldn't keep her big mouth shut. That was her problem.
Victoria knew it,
TJ had just been walking home with some other kids minding his own business.
but she had to say it anyways.
Poop in your pants! Well, he had been mean to her friend Cassie at school.
And she wanted him to know she wasn't happy about it.
But pooping your pants? TJ went red.
Like a cartoon character, sort of from the bottom of his face up to the top.
Like his head was about to open up and steam and fire would shoot out into the air.
Like fireworks.
Like fireworks.
It made her wonder if it was really true.
She hadn't believed it when she heard it at first.
I mean, Jacinta O'Dern was such a liar. She had said that TJ pooped his pants at his old school, but Victoria had thought, how would you know?
You didn't go to his old school.
But TJ sure was reacting like it was true.
Well, maybe people saying it so much just made his brain fizz.
Maybe people saying it so much it just made his brain fizz.
Anyways, he went ballistic.
And his friend went ballistic with him.
They flew at Victoria like a pack of magpies in spring.
Lucky she was fast.
She sprinted.
They were yelling behind her.
Threatening her.
When we catch you,
When we
you're
catch you,
dead.
you're dead. And stuff like that. They didn't mean it.
I mean, they weren't actually going to kill her.
She knew that. But she didn't want to stop and find out what would actually happen instead of death. She thought it would probably be worse.
She was getting out of breath.
And they were gaining.
She could see her house.
But suddenly she was panicking.
She was not going to get there in time.
She was going to be caught.
Without thinking, she ran into the witch's yard.
She turned around and yelled at them.
Which one gets you? TJ kind of slowed down at the gate and gave her a smile that was not friendly. His smile said, "I'm gonna make you very unhappy."
There's no such thing as witches, TJ said.
He started to walk towards her.
And she felt like she was frozen.
There was really nowhere to go to get away.
He was still grinning with his little bunch of hench kids bunching up behind him.
Then suddenly his face changed.
His smile dropped.
His eyes went wide.
Clear off! Clear off!
Victoria jumped and turned her head.
There was someone in the witch's doorway.
An old lady with super white hair and skin.
She looked angry and just a little crazy. TJ and the crew were wide-eyed, but they weren't moving.
They weren't moving.
"What are you kids, deaf?" said the old lady.
Want to be part of my stew for dinner?
Where's my knife?
She said, turning back towards the door.
The sound from TJ and his friends was almost silent.
Victoria turned and they were already halfway down the street.
Just starting to giggle at each other.
Just starting to giggle at each other in that freaked-out kind of way that Victoria knew too well when it came to the witch. And by the time she turned back round to look at the old lady,
the door was closing.
And she was gone.
Victoria stood, stunned. Wow, that was her. That was really her.
That was not what I expected.
Or maybe it is what I expected.
She couldn't decide. But whichever way, that was not the end of that. She strode confidently towards the door, pulled open the creaky screen,
and knocked. Thwack, thwack.
Wait. No answer.
Knock again.
No answer.
But she thought she saw the curtain beside the door move. Knock again.
No answer.
"I'm not running away,"
Victoria said loudly.
Well, that's a change.
A voice came, muffled from inside. A hard voice.
Cranky sounding, but maybe with a little laugh in it somewhere.
"Why did you give me a teddy bear?"
Victoria said, not mucking around.
I had no use for it.
"Was it your daughter's?"
Victoria asked, not beating around the bush.
Yes.
Came back the witch's voice.
Sad now.
What was her name?
Victoria.
And Victoria could hear the smile back in her voice.
Like she was pleased that Victoria had figured out the teddy bear.
Like it was a clue.
And the witch had wanted her to know, wanted her to ask.
Same as me?
Said Victoria.
Same as you.
The witch agreed.
Can I come inside?
Victoria was cautious.
She had always wanted this.
And was scared of it too.
Now she wasn't scared, but she wanted to come in more than ever. She didn't want the witch to say no.
No,
said the witch.
You let Naomi come in.
Well, she's a lot more polite than you.
The witch sounded blunt.
A bit like Victoria, in fact.
But Victoria wasn't exactly sure what she meant.
What does polite mean?
She doesn't scream over my fence or do knock and run at my front door.
The witch said.
The crankiness back. With a little smile there, though, thought Victoria.
Victoria thought for a minute.
If I was polite, would you let me come in?
She truly meant it.
She hoped the lady could hear it in her voice.
There was a long pause.
Tell Naomi to bring you over tomorrow at 4 o'clock and you can have some afternoon tea here. That okay?
Bless, thought Victoria.
Something Naomi sometimes said in a funny way.
But Victoria felt its meaning now. Bless.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, she smiled and started to walk away.
But wait.
She couldn't finish it there. She still didn't know. She couldn't wait till tomorrow.
What's your name?
She blurted out.
The lady didn't speak straight away.
But the quiet had one of those grins in it.
You can call me Witchy. How does that sound?
Victoria laughed.
Thank you, Witchy. See you tomorrow.
She walked away from the door and down the pathway to the gate.
At the gate, she turned and looked back at the house.
It had always looked so scary.
Like if it could, it will reach out and grab you.
But not anymore.
It just looked like a house.
It just looked like a house. Victoria watched the house for a good long while.
Thinking.
What the hell was afternoon tea? Mum drank tea, but Victoria didn't like the smell of it.
Didn't the witch realise she was a kid?
Kids don't drink tea. Didn't she have any cordial or juice?
Guess not.
Not too many kids go in there, hey?
Victoria walked away from the house towards her own place. And even the thought of drinking smelly tea could not calm down the happy excitement she felt about tomorrow and getting to go through that door.
Shout out to Caden, Drew, Lolly, Nikki, Gail, Bryce, Zane, Gentina, Naomi, Alara, Jalara, Nitali, Ozzy, Braxton, Sharif, Jay, Tyler, Nardi, Thomas, Chloe and Latea, who feature in that story. And special thanks to Robina Beard, who plays the witch. In this next story, we consider death and dying from the point of view of a child who dies, and from the point of view of his family and friends. Story 2, Remembering Owen Day.
I just want to be remembered, he said.
Of course, she said.
What makes you think I could ever forget you? She said.
You've only known me for 7 years, he said.
I wouldn't forget you even if I'd only known you for 1 minute, she said.
He thought about that. That's true, he said. I could not forget you. What are you going to do after I die? He asked. He didn't plan on it.
Didn't plan on not being able to cure cancer.
Who does?
He wanted to talk about what death would be like.
I don't want to be by myself, he said. Without you.
She had to think. Maybe it's like when we go in the car to the hospital.
And you fall asleep. While you're asleep, I'm still doing things.
I'm still driving.
The time passes quick for you.
But we end up together in the end. A counsellor came to see him.
Have you talked to anyone who died and came back?
He asked her.
The counsellor said no.
The counsellor said no.
He said,
well, I don't need to talk to you then.
They drove past the cemetery.
Where his aunt, her sister, was buried. You don't go there much, he said.
No, she said. I don't, do I?
I'll be buried, he said confidently.
And I will like it if you come visit.
Michelle came to play.
She was 7 too. His friend.
There was other kids who came.
But Owen told his mum he didn't want them to come anymore.
He didn't want them to come anymore.
They only come because you ask them to, he said.
Or their parents tell them they have to.
But Michelle was different.
Michelle can come and visit, he said.
Michelle played with him just the same as she would play with anyone.
I just want to be remembered, he said.
What do you want me to do to remember you? Owen's mum said.
Owen sighed. Do I have to think of everything? He asked.
Just before Owen died, he was anxious, fretting.
She just told him he was very safe.
He settled.
She settled.
And then he died.
Michelle's mum rang up.
Michelle's mum rang up and said Michelle wanted to come over and see Owen.
And see Owen.
Owen's mum talked with Michelle's mum about it and they said okay.
And they said okay. Michelle sat on his bed.
She touched him.
Fluids came out of him.
His muscles aren't holding stuff in anymore,
said Owen's mum.
Michelle sat on the bed with him like they had just been eating fish and chips, like they did a few weeks ago.
Her sense of him hadn't changed that much.
There was Owen awake.
Owen asleep.
Owen laughing. Owen eating fish and chips.
Owen dead.
Just another way Owen was.
Her best friend.
Her best friend. I just want to be remembered, he said.
Should we have a special day for it? She asked.
Yes, he said. What would we do?
We can do whatever you want, she said.
He thought about it.
What do you think you would like? She asked after a while.
Whatever makes us happy, he said. So they created Remembering Owen Day. And they remembered.
They all remembered all that they could.
She still gets emails from people on Remembering Owen Day, and she knows he is very happy about that.
Our thanks to Lizzie, Curtis and Zane, who feature in that story. And thanks to Marie, who shared Owen and her family's stories as part of our story sharing group. And let us be part of Remembering Owen by telling this story. Our final story in this episode also considers what happens when a child dies, and how we think and talk about it. Story 3, Grace.
Greg Ellis from the Illawarra Mercury newspaper wrote these words in July 2019. Just 1 week after her 13th birthday, Gracie Wallace, amazing grace to her family, left the world richer for her journey last Thursday night. After being born with a hypoxic brain injury and cerebral palsy, she left an indelible mark on the countless people she touched with her young life. Those attending her funeral are encouraged to wear bright colours and bring their smiles for a happy celebration of a short life that made a huge impact. Gracie's sister Sophie said her favourite memory of Gracie would be feeding her chocolate mousse in the bath. The two girls made a huge mess, but the smile on Gracie's face made Sophie realise it was her favourite thing they did together as well. The last time Susan Wallace, Gracie and Sophie's mum, saw such big smiles was while doing just that last Tuesday. That came just days after Gracie's 13th birthday, when she was not well enough to really celebrate, but they gave her a big warm bath, sang to her, and made sure she knew how much they loved her. Disabled does not mean lesser, it just means different. We never saw Gracie as being broken and needing to be fixed. From the moment she was born, she was perfect, just the way she was. Susan said nobody chooses to have a disabled child, but Gracie was someone with an enormous ability, and a gift to make everyone she met a better person. You couldn't help but be impacted by her, she said, because she was Grace by name and Grace by nature. My name is Melody, and I was fortunate enough to be on the crew that met up with Susan and Sophie to talk about Gracie. Also in the conversation are Zane, Jay and Curtis, and our crew mentors Shanice and Phil.
Susan and Sophie, tell me if I'm wrong, but it might be a real conversation killer if you're out and then it comes up and you said, yeah, my daughter died or my sister died. That'd be right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
The mood always changes in a conversation when you bring it up.
I mean, death is one of those subjects that people don't like to talk about, makes people very uncomfortable. It's somehow more palatable or acceptable to think or talk about death when it's an older person. That's kind of okay. Yeah, it's expected, isn't it? When it happens and somebody dies young, then not only is it harder to come to terms with for some people, but also because you feel like someone's life's been cut short, but it's also, it can be more triggering. It makes it too real for people and it can put you in a position where you feel it could be me, and then that creates a whole heap of other experiences and feelings. The death of a young person is particularly hard, for some people hard to accept. Now, for us, losing Gracie, you know, we were supposed to lose her the day she was born. And so every day past that was a bonus. And to have 13 wonderful years was quite incredible. We feel really lucky. Now, Sophie can say something about that.
And a week, 13 years and a week. I was quite young when Gracie passed away. My grandmother had a cleaner over and she was talking about how she had had a stillborn child, and I brought up Gracie's passing, and she told me something which has stuck with me since. It was that there's two different deaths: when the person stops breathing and the last time someone says their name.
Gracie was stillborn and revived, so she had a brain injury, and she didn't communicate verbally, but she communicated non-verbally particularly with me, and she used a wheelchair and was also blind. So she was quite significantly affected by her disabilities, but she was heaven on a stick and had a fabulous life. We didn't focus on what she couldn't do. We just very much celebrated, how much she gave just by being here and leaving a big impact.
People sometimes say it's tragic when someone dies at a young age because it's a life cut short. What do you think of that?
If you just think about the bad stuff, they had a short life and they could have done so much more and all that, then you can't even think about the good stuff that they even had in their life.
Yeah. We could and should have lost Gracie on day one, and we got 13 years and 7 days, didn't we, Sophie? So that was amazing. She didn't have a life cut short. She had a life extended. It's very much about perspective, and obviously we're incredibly broken and devastated and always will be, but we set the scene for other people to talk about Gracie, and we celebrate how long she lived, and of course we'd give anything to have her back, but we kind of look at it from a really different place of feeling fortunate and blessed and grateful for having her at all, as opposed to being completely devastated for losing her. I don't know that that's a usual reaction to the death of your child. Not that I think there's any right or wrong or usual way to do it, but my point is that how you as a person feel and frame the experience then sets the scene for how people support you and how they talk about the loss.
How can we support others in their grief and loss?
I feel like something that would not be helpful is bring it up all the time, or bring it around crowds of a bunch of people, or tell multiple people about it. Because I don't think you want it to be a giant thing, something that everybody knows about.
That's a really mature observation for someone so young, to think that, if it's not your story to tell, don't tell it.
You have to show that you're there for them, but without forcing yourself too much. Let them know that you're there, but don't be hey, you have to tell me this, Be there in small, if you can only be there in small ways, then do that. Support them in any ways you can, whether it's with kind words, if they need help with something,
I mean, maybe being willing to ask the questions, and then it's like giving them a choice as well, saying, if you don't want to talk about it now, that's absolutely cool.
I know for me, I can't speak for other people. When I'm in the darkest, deepest, blackest place, I don't reach out because I can't reach out. So, as a person trying to support someone else, sometimes the silence tells you far more. And you've got to work out what's a reasonable amount of time to leave them, and, how long's too long, because they could be spiralling. It's different for everyone, and it's really tough.
Sophie, can I ask you, what sort of support did you have?
People came to her celebration of life, my friends to help support my family, and just knowing that they were going to be there for me, I knew that if I reached out, I'd be able to get help and be supported.
Are there any things that people say all the time that you think actually would be better for them not to say?
Constantly saying they're in a better place or something like that.
For us, some of the things that were said too often was when, Gracie was disabled, and for people to say, she was out of pain and her suffering was over, not helpful, that's a real judgment call. The only person who could say they were suffering was Gracie, and she wasn't. She had all her needs met, nobody bullied her. She didn't have to put up with the unkindness in the world. She was just adored and fed lots of fantastic food. She was just worshipped, as she bloody well should have been, because she was amazing. And it doesn't give you any comfort to think that they're in a better place, because there is no better place than in my arms. Grief is love with nowhere to go. You'll always love them, so you'll always grieve them at some level. I think, we've just had the 3rd anniversary of Gracie's death just this week, and we still miss her just as much, but we're getting better at missing her. We're getting better at living without her, even though, we wish we didn't have to.
Coping with the pain.
Yep.
You said before about keeping on saying Gracie's name and letting others hear about her, that was important. How do you do that?
You answer.
So we have a scholarship in Gracie's name for a disabled woman at the Illawarra International Women's Day
What do we do for a birthday?
We eat chocolate mousse because that was her favourite food, because it was something that she could eat because it wasn't like chewy.
And we've got an amazing playlist. I created a Spotify playlist that's 14 hours long.
As one does.
And I made it public, and a couple of my disabled friends who are, have really big reach, they share that for Gracie's birthday. And it's got 57 followers. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's not bad for Spotify. So yeah, we play her music, and people all around the world listen to that because it's a pretty cool playlist.
Other things we've done to help with her legacy is the little things like donating her equipment, selling her car, to the special car that we had, to another family with a disabled child.
This is really cool and a bit spooky. We put a cheap price on it deliberately. We wanted it to go, and we were happy to give a bit of money away to, create a legacy. The surname of the people who bought the car is Gracie. And the little girl who now uses that chariot, her birthday is the same day as Gracie's last day.
Wow.
I know, freaky. And that gives me massive comfort, because I feel like she's saying in her own way from wherever she is that everything's okay, that she's okay and she's proud of us. I don't know, it's encouraging. It's like she's still here in a different way.
Those things we all carry forward, and then the stories that we tell about them help us to cope.
It's how we can keep people alive, and how people who didn't meet her still can feel like they knew her.
If you've enjoyed listening to our podcast, you can support us to keep making more stories by going to Beyond Empathy's website and donating. You can make a one-off donation or commit to supporting us regularly. Every bit helps a lot. It's an easy site to find: www.be.org.au. That's B for Beyond, E for Empathy, so be.org.au. And even if you can't support us with money, you can really help us by spreading the word. Tell your friends, colleagues and families to listen. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Like our posts and share them. You know what to do.
And if you want to have a conversation with the young people who've created Parting, we're also telling a bunch of our stories in what we're calling podformances. Podformances can be live, virtual or both. You can even host one. You could ask us to come and present at your school, or for your team meeting, your conference, your event. Our young stars can appear live or virtually or both. Tell a few stories and have a yarn about grief, death and dying, and whatever else comes up. Just get in contact via our website. The people who made today's podcast are Caden, Nikki, Drew, Lully, Gail, Zane, Bryce, Phil, Daniel, Chris, Jackson, Gentina, Naomi, Shanice, Melody, Alara, Ozzy, Natali, Jalara, Chloe, Braxton, Emma, Alice, Sharif, Gemma, Jay, Curtis, Shaniqua, Tyler, Zane, Elias, Victoria, Nadi, Chloe, Lizzie and Latea. The music you heard in the stories is from Chris D'Souza, Philip Okerstrom, Damien Mason and also Kevin McLeod. Special thanks to our partners, TAFE New South Wales Wollongong Screen and Media and Southern Youth and Family Services for allowing us to use their amazing studios, and Audio Technica Australia for their incredible equipment. Beyond Empathy has received funding for the podcast from The Edge from the Australia Council for the Arts, Create New South Wales, Zurich Australia and the Z Zurich Foundation, Coordinaire, South Eastern New South Wales Public Health Network through the Australian Government Public Health Network program, the Australian Government Department of Social Services under the Families and Communities program through Barnardo's Australia, and also the Tony Foundation. We would love to hear from you. Send us a message about our podcast or make a comment. Tell us a story. You can send us a message via our social media pages or via the website, whatever is better for you. You've been listening to Parting, one of Beyond Empathy's podcasts from The Edge. Next time on Parting, we start a story that is going to take us 6 episodes to finish, about the Unteachables. A Year 9 English class. Need I say more? But actually, this story is about how the so-called Unteachables help each other understand grief through, of all things, poetry. Catch you then.